Imagine a huge forest of green that seems to go on forever. Thick clouds roll above, and under the leaves and vines, secrets have been kept safe for thousands of years. For a long time, many people thought the Amazon rainforest was too dense and too harsh for large, advanced societies to live there. They imagined only small groups could survive by hunting, fishing, or farming a bit of corn and cassava. But not long ago, something happened that changed those beliefs. Deep under tangled plants in a remote valley in Ecuador, scientists found evidence of an ancient city. It was not just a few huts or scattered ruins. It was a planned city with long roads, open plazas where people gathered, large earth mounds, and neighborhoods that stretched for miles. Everything was organized with great care, and it had been hidden by the forest for centuries. The city is enormous. When experts measured it, they realized its size could be compared to ancient Rome at its height. The discovery surprised archaeologists and made them ask many questions. Who were the people who created such a big and complex place in the middle of a rainforest? How did they build wide roads, big ceremonial areas, and huge mounds in such a challenging environment? Why did this amazing city get forgotten and covered by trees for so long? In this story, we will travel into the Amazon to learn about this city and the people who built it. The clues we find may change what we thought we knew about ancient cultures in South America. Long before this discovery, writers and explorers who visited the Amazon often wrote that it was empty of large settlements. Early European accounts from the 1500s described small villages and simple huts. These stories became part of popular imagination and influenced scientific thinking. People believed that the climate, insects, poor soil, and thick vegetation made it impossible for large groups of people to live there for long. The idea that complex societies could rise and fall in such a setting seemed unlikely. When isolated pottery pieces or low mounds were found in the past, they were dismissed as small camps or temporary settlements. This view shaped how textbooks portrayed the Amazon for many years. The recent finding of a vast, planned city forces us to revisit those old beliefs. It shows that we sometimes underestimate ancient people simply because we have not looked closely enough or lacked the right tools. Learning that a place once thought inhospitable was home to thousands of people challenges us to question other assumptions about the past and reminds us that our understanding is always evolving. When scientists first went into the thick jungle of Ecuador's Upano Valley, they did not expect to find much. They thought they might see a few small villages or some broken walls. The vegetation was so thick that it was hard to see very far. But under the plants lay something completely unexpected. Hidden for hundreds of years was an enormous and complicated city. To see through the dense leaves and branches, researchers used a special tool called LiDAR. LiDAR stands for light detection and ranging. It sends out laser beams from an airplane to the ground. The lasers go through the tree canopy and bounce back when they hit the ground. By timing how long the beams take to return, the machine can make detailed pictures of what lies beneath the forest. Other methods like satellites and walking surveys did not work because the plants hid everything. LiDAR could see through the green cover and reveal what was underneath. When the first LiDAR scans came back, the scientists were amazed. The images showed thousands of earthen mounds, large areas where people had lived, and a network of roads laid out in careful patterns. What looked like untouched wilderness was actually a huge city more than 20 square miles in area. This finding forced researchers to rethink their beliefs. They had long thought the Amazon's heavy rains, poor soils, and dense vegetation could not support big, organized societies. Suddenly, they had proof that a large civilization had thrived here, with planning skills equal to well-known ancient cities elsewhere in the world. LiDAR works in a fascinating way. A device on a plane or helicopter sends out millions of tiny light pulses every second. Each pulse travels to the ground, hits whatever is there, leaves, branches, or bare earth, and bounces back. A sensor measures how long each pulse took to return. Using that timing, computers calculate the distance and create a three-dimensional picture of the landscape. By filtering out the pulses that hit leaves or branches, scientists can see the ground's surface with incredible detail, even under thick jungle. This technology has been used in other parts of the world to find hidden pyramids in Central America and buried fortresses in Southeast Asia. In the Amazon, it is especially useful because traditional methods are too slow and often impossible. On foot, researchers would have to cut through thorny vines, climb over fallen logs, and deal with insects and snakes, often seeing only a few meters ahead. LiDAR can cover hundreds of square miles in a few days, revealing features that might take decades to find on the ground. Once LiDAR points scientists to promising places, teams can hike in to verify what the scans show and begin careful excavation and mapping. As they studied the layout, archaeologists saw different parts of the city. There were neighborhoods of houses arranged in specific shapes, many round, some rectangular. There were open squares and plazas used for gatherings, markets, or ceremonies. There were huge earth mounds, some over 100 meters wide, that stood out even through the trees. Roads and paths connected everything in straight lines and deliberate angles, showing that the builders paid close attention to how people and goods would move. This level of organization suggests that the people who lived here had the skills to plan and work together on a grand scale. The more the researchers saw, the more they wondered, how could a culture with no written language that we know of design such a precise and expansive place? What tools and techniques did they use? Who were they? To find out, archaeologists began to look carefully at everything left behind. They found pottery pieces decorated with shapes and patterns, ceremonial objects used in rituals, carved stones, and simple tools. These items matched artifacts known from a culture called the Upano. The Upano people were known from scattered pieces in museums, but most people thought they lived in small groups along rivers. No one guessed they could build such a large city. LiDAR gave a broad view, but the scientists needed to explore on the ground to make sure the images were real. They walked through the forest to where the LiDAR showed structures. They found plazas where rituals happened, areas with houses and pathways showing social order, and terraced fields cut into hillsides that suggested advanced farming. Each visit added more detail. With every discovery, their picture of Upano life grew richer, but the mystery also grew. How did these people learn to manage their environment so well? Who taught them to plan on such a big scale? And why did their city vanish from memory? The Upano civilization existed about 2,500 years ago. Before this discovery, historians believed Amazon cultures at that time were small and scattered. They thought the rainforest prevented large communities from forming because of its difficult climate and thin soils. The city in Upano Valley proves those ideas wrong. Artifacts at the site include distinctive pots with intricate geometric designs. These ceramics show specialized craftsmen lived there, each with specific jobs. There were also stone tools and beautifully carved ceremonial objects, showing that the Upano had skilled stone workers who could shape local rock. Without written records, it is hard to tell exactly how their society worked. But the city layout tells us a lot. The roads uncovered by LiDAR show that they planned transportation carefully. The network of pathways linked homes, gathering places, and ceremonial areas, making it easy to move around. This suggests they traded, communicated, and probably held festivals that brought people together from different parts of the valley. Daily life in this ancient city must have been busy and varied. Families likely lived in wooden houses with roofs made of palm leaves or grass. The homes may have been built around small courtyards where children played and adults cooked, wove baskets, and made pottery. People probably wore clothes made from woven plant fibers and decorated themselves with beads made from shells, seeds, and stones. Traders might have visited from neighboring villages, bringing goods such as salt, fish, feathers, and stones to exchange for pottery, food, or tools. Skilled craftsmen could have included potters who shaped and painted jars and bowls, stone carvers who made ornaments and axes, and weavers who created mats and baskets. Hunters would have brought back meat from deer, monkeys, and birds, while farmers tended fields of cassava, maize, and beans. Children might have learned skills by helping their parents, playing games that taught balance and coordination, or listening to elders tell stories of ancestors and gods. Social life would have included dancing, music played on flutes or drums, and community feasts where people shared food and stories. Although we do not have written records, studying similar societies helps us imagine what daily routines might have looked like for the Upano people. A major question arises: how did people thrive in such a challenging environment? The Amazon has heavy rains and floods, poor soil, and a dense forest that can make travel difficult. The Upano people overcame these obstacles with clever farming and engineering. Archaeologists found terraced fields, platforms cut into hillsides to make flat farmland. These terraces slowed down rainwater so it would not wash away soil. They also prevented the soil from sliding down the slopes. The Upano built irrigation channels and ditches to capture rainfall and river water and direct it to their fields and homes. They also made drainage channels around buildings and roads so water could flow away safely during heavy rains. This careful water management protected the city from floods and kept crops healthy. It shows that the builders understood their environment deeply and worked with it instead of against it. One of the most surprising discoveries is the use of terra preta, or dark earth. Terra preta is soil that ancient people made by mixing charcoal, broken pottery, and compost with the natural soil. The charcoal keeps nutrients in the soil, and the pottery pieces help water stay in the ground instead of washing away. By creating terra preta, the Upano people turned poor soil into fertile land that could produce food year after year without becoming exhausted. Scientists tested the soil and found it still contained high amounts of nutrients, showing that this was an intentional, long-term farming strategy. They grew maize, cassava, and fruits, as shown by pollen found in the soil. These crops, combined with fish and game from the forest and rivers, supported a large population. The fact that the Upano used such advanced farming methods tells us they had generations of knowledge passed down about plants, soil, and weather. Making terra preta likely took a lot of careful work. Farmers would collect the charcoal left over from cooking fires and mix it with food scraps, animal bones, and broken pots. They might have burned branches and leaves in low oxygen conditions to create charcoal, then crushed it into small pieces. The pottery shards helped break up the soil and made small pockets to hold water and nutrients. By adding this mix to the poor, sandy soil, they created patches of dark, fertile earth that could support many kinds of crops. Creating these patches would have been a community effort, repeated over many generations. Families may have worked together to maintain and expand these fertile plots, sharing knowledge about which plants grew best and how to keep the soil rich. This method is very different from slash-and-burn agriculture, where people burn a patch of forest, farm it for a few years, and then move on when the soil is exhausted. Terra preta shows that the Upano people understood that their land was precious and needed to be improved and cared for carefully. Modern scientists are still studying terra preta to see if these methods can be used today to restore soil in degraded areas. The city's engineering went beyond farming. To protect against frequent floods, the people built large raised platforms and embankments made of compacted earth and stones. These structures lifted homes and public buildings above the floodplain. Stairways, retaining walls, and ceremonial platforms were built with carefully selected stones. The limited use of stone meant they chose where to place it for strength, like in foundations, steps, and important buildings. Such planning suggests they had builders and planners who understood how to make stable structures using the materials they had. The consistent style of pottery, tools, and ceremonial objects found across the site hints that the Upano shared a common culture and perhaps had centralized leadership. People across the valley cooperated, trading goods and ideas, and following similar customs and rules. Researchers believe that the large plazas and mounds were important gathering places. These open areas might have been used for markets where people traded food, pottery, and crafts. They could also have been used for ceremonies that brought the community together. Large mounds may have held temples or homes for leaders or priests. The fact that the city had many such communal spaces shows that social and spiritual life were central to the culture. The careful placement of artifacts in and around these spaces gives clues about daily life. Objects found in homes might show family status or profession. Items found near plazas or on mounds probably relate to the community as a whole, like ritual tools or offerings used to honor ancestors or gods. As archaeologists dug deeper, they found carved figurines, ceremonial stone axes, and engraved amulets. These objects were not everyday tools. They were used in rituals. The figurines may represent gods, animals, or ancestors, and the engraved symbols may carry meanings we do not yet understand. The careful craftsmanship shows that the Upano valued art and symbolism. Some carvings resemble those from other Amazonian cultures, suggesting there was communication or trade among different groups. But many Yupano artifacts are unique, indicating that they developed their own styles and beliefs. By comparing these items to those from nearby regions, researchers think the Yupano participated in networks of exchange, sharing ideas and goods across long distances. This tells us that the rainforest was not an isolated world, but a place full of connections. Although we do not know the exact stories the Yupano told, the carvings and symbols give us hints about their beliefs. Many Amazonian cultures believe that spirits live in animals, trees, and rivers. They see the natural world as alive and interconnected. In ceremonies, they might paint their bodies, wear masks, and dance to drums and flutes. Shamans, spiritual leaders, could have guided rituals to heal the sick, ask for rain, or thank the spirits for a good harvest. In some parts of the Amazon, people drink plant mixtures that cause visions during ceremonies. The Yupano might have had similar practices. Large gatherings at the mounds and plazas could have included music, chanting, and offerings of food and pottery. These events would have strengthened community bonds and helped resolve disputes. Artifacts found in different places hint that people exchanged not just goods but also beliefs and songs with neighbors. Trade routes might have followed rivers and footpaths, carrying shells from the coast, colorful feathers from faraway birds, and copper bells or beads from distant mines. The Yupano's unique art shows they combined outside influences with their own creativity, making objects that were both beautiful and meaningful. One big mystery remains. Why did this well-organized and skilled civilization disappear? When archaeologists look at the layers of soil at the site, they see a thick layer of volcanic ash that dates to about 1,500 years ago. This layer sits on top of the city, which means it fell after the ash fell. Geologists say this ash came from a huge volcanic eruption nearby. Such an eruption would have been disastrous. The heavy ash would have covered fields, poisoned plants, and polluted water. Crops would die, and people would not have enough food or clean water. Evidence at the site shows that tools were dropped, homes were abandoned quickly, and buildings were left unfinished. All this points to a sudden disaster. Soil tests show there was no gradual decline in farming. Everything stopped abruptly. It seems likely that the volcano forced the people to leave. Natural disasters often trigger other problems. After a major eruption, leadership might weaken, trade might stop, and people might move away. The Yupano people could have faced all these challenges. Similar stories appear in other ancient cultures. For example, the Maya built great cities but later left many of them, possibly because of drought or crop failures. The city of Teotihuacan in Mexico was also abandoned after a major disaster. So the Yupano people's sudden disappearance fits a pattern seen in ancient history. However, there are still questions. How large was the eruption? How far did the ash spread? Did everyone leave, or did some people stay? Researchers continue to study the ash and the ruins to learn more. After the people left, nature quickly covered the city with plants. Within a few decades, trees and vines grew over the buildings, hiding everything from view. The jungle protected the city from later people and preserved it for archaeologists to find today. When disasters strike, human communities often show remarkable resilience. Even if the main city was abandoned, some Yupano people may have moved to safer areas. They might have taken seeds, tools, and traditions with them and started new villages along rivers or in the foothills. Oral traditions pass down stories of the great city and the volcano that ended it. Those stories could have survived in myths and legends told around fires for generations. Studying how people respond to disasters helps us understand how cultures adapt and survive. Today, volcanoes, earthquakes, and floods still affect communities around the world. Learning about the Yupano's experience can remind us that planning, cooperation, and respect for nature are vital. It also shows us that nature can hide the remains of whole cities in a few decades, preserving them for future generations to rediscover. This discovery has important lessons for the future. For a long time, most people underestimated what societies in the Amazon could do. Because the rainforest is so dense, early explorers missed many sites. They assumed that the environment could not support large populations. The Upano city proves that complex societies existed here, with advanced planning, road systems, farming, and trade. It suggests that other big, organized communities may lie hidden under the trees. LiDAR technology is now letting scientists see through the canopy. Already, LiDAR has found more roads, terraces, and ceremonial sites in other parts of the Amazon. This means we have only begun to uncover the full picture. The Upano city might be one of many that survived and thrived in ways we never knew. Finding more cities could change how we view the ancient Americas. Until now, the most famous civilizations from this region were the Maya, Aztec, and Inca, which had written records, stone pyramids, and big cities. If hidden Amazonian cities were equally advanced, they deserve just as much attention. They may show that trade routes and communication networks connected far-flung communities. Pots, shells, and stones found in the Upano Valley hint that people traded across long distances. If similar sites are found elsewhere, we might learn that the Amazon region was a center of innovation and culture rather than a remote wilderness. We might discover how knowledge and ideas spread between different groups, how they adapted to local conditions, and how they worked together or competed. This would make the history of the Americas even richer. LiDAR is a key tool in this research. It is becoming the preferred way to explore jungles, forests, and other places where plants hide ancient sites. Unlike satellites or photographs, LiDAR sends many laser pulses that can map the ground in detail, even if there are trees and leaves in the way. By using this technology in more areas, scientists are finding roads, terraces, canals, and buildings that nobody knew were there. It helps archaeologists know where to dig and what to look for. It also shows patterns across large areas, like how cities were connected or where people farmed. The discoveries are also important for people living in the Amazon today. Some indigenous communities have long oral histories about their ancestors' towns and farms. When LiDAR finds these places, it confirms these stories and helps preserve cultural heritage. It also shows the world that indigenous peoples have a long, rich history of innovation that deserves respect. Even with all these insights, we still have many questions. How many more cities are hidden under the forest? How did these different communities influence each other? What other kinds of technologies and ideas did they invent that we have yet to discover? As technology improves and more people study the Amazon, we hope to find answers. The story of the Upano city shows that history is not just in textbooks. It is also buried under the ground, waiting for us to reveal it. By looking, listening, and asking questions, we keep the memory of these ancient builders alive. Today, we have explored a lost city buried under the jungle. We have seen how LiDAR helped scientists see through the forest, how the Upano people planned and built a huge city, how they managed water and soil, and how they created beautiful art and strong communities. We looked at how a volcanic eruption might have ended their city and how the forest covered it up. This discovery challenges old ideas about the Amazon and suggests there are many more secrets to find. We encourage you to think about who built this incredible city and why they left. Perhaps you have ideas or questions. Feel free to share them. If you enjoy learning about ancient mysteries and forgotten cultures, please join us again. There is still so much to discover. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring. As you finish watching and listening about this hidden city, take a moment to think about where you are. Are you sitting in a busy city? Or maybe in a small town? Is it morning, afternoon, or night? Imagine what the world looked like for the Upano people as they watched the sunrise over the rainforest thousands of years ago. We would love to know what part of the world you are in and what time it is while you are learning about this mystery. Sharing your location and time in the comments helps us see how stories like this travel across the globe. It also reminds us that curiosity connects us, no matter where we live. If this journey through history sparked your interest, please consider subscribing so you can join us on more adventures. We explore new mysteries and discoveries, and we would love for you to be part of our community. Your questions and thoughts inspire future topics and help keep these ancient stories alive. Together, we can continue exploring, wondering, and learning from the past.